Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Zero Hour. This is the first Zero Hour of 2020 where we'll be covering Long Beach Comic Expo. With us on the show is our crew, Jared the Greek.
Hello everyone, welcome to the future.
Deb.
2020.
And of course, Stan.
Hey, where's my flying car?
We were supposed to be due for those back in 2015.
Right, still don't have it. Damn you, Jetsons.
Anyway, so I didn't attend Long Beach Comic Expo. I had other things going on that weekend, but the three of you did. So I understand that y'all attended on Sunday.
Yeah, the only day we could actually go.
Yeah, life has its way of interrupting your plans.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of things happening during that weekend in Southern California. You had Anime Los Angeles over in the Inland Empire, and you had Long Beach Comic Expo during this weekend too. And it's so strange because I remember Long Beach Comic Expo always consistently being on President's Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think the date change affected anything in the con? Was it a lot smaller than usual, attendee-wise?
Well, again, it's hard to tell because it's Sunday, and Sunday's usually a calmer day for Long Beach Comic Expo. But as far as we could tell, attendance does seem to be down a bit, and whether that's because it was in January and way too early in the year, or if it's just because last year's events were not great, it's hard to say.
I mean, I will say that you and me both, I think we can agree that we did not see a lot of anime costumes as it used to. Even by Sunday standard, that's a low count right there.
Even low count just on comic book related costumes for that matter. Costuming in general seemed to be down.
Which is, I don't know if you want to take that as a barometer, to be honest. Like you said, Sunday, you can't really judge, but it's still something.
I still had to dodge strollers. So that still remained a thing. And I had to... a few points in the dealer hall did get a little crowded and cramped.
But not too much.
Not like it has been in some previous years for sure. And I think we could use that as a decent segue directly into the dealer hall. That's the first thing we all hit. What did the two of you think of the dealer hall this year?
It's first of all, wow.
Has it gotten shrunk?
I don't think it's shrunk, but what they did is that they kind of consolidated everything. They didn't separate it as much as they used to,
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Yeah, so you would have some of the guest table mixed up with the artist alley. And it just took me a little while. I'm just wait, isn't that guy from the Breaking Bad next to the artist? Wait, what's going on here,
That artist was the guy who did the Breaking Bad, the comic, though. It was great.
Oh, was he? Oh, man.
People, there's no Breaking Bad comic.
I know, we're being just absolutely sarcastic right there.
There's a little bit of disorganization for sure.
And then watch, it's going to be Breaking Bad comic. But anyways.
Paulie will get his spin-off. It'll be great. But it's one of those things where it did feel a bit disorganized. And normally it's actually very well sectioned. I mean, it still had the big signs in the what do you call them? The signs hanging from the ceiling, saying different zones, artist alley and stuff like that. But the artist alley wasn't entirely made up of artists, and the guest area wasn't entirely made up of guests. And I don't know. It feels like someone was just this is where we set the tables. I guess we're good. Wherever anyone wants to sit.
I mean, honestly, the first 3 rows up front, they're alright, okay? It's just when you enter the artist alley, that's when it starts to get a little bit janky.
Well, even in the back was all kind of squished. There's more hall space I remember being in the back, and they did not really have it. Because I remember trying to weave my way through there in the weird, out of alignment booths that they had there. I was like, how do I navigate through this to get back? I want to watch the film festival.
Yeah. I will say though, man, it's I think we mentioned this, there weren't many people to begin with, so it's kind of oh man, I feel bad for the artists at this point,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to guesstimate how many people showed up on Sunday, and we know that, Sunday might not be the best of barometers, but how many people you think showed up on Sunday?
I want to lean towards...
There were some families, from what
I want to lean
noticed.
towards 2,000. I might be undercutting it a bit.
Wow, you're really... That's all... I thought that's a lot, considering it's Sunday, okay.
But I think this is a con that normally gets closer to like 8,000 people or something like that.
Are we talking total, like 2 days total, or just one day? You know.
I guess one day probably closer to 4,000. Yeah, I guess probably the average Sunday. What do you think? It's probably 3,500 during a good year, and then now it's dropped down to. Or do you think it's actually lower than that? Do you think I'm overshooting it?
I'm a ballpark at 1,500.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
gives you a general idea. Not a lot of people comparatively to what they usually have. That we can say for sure.
Yeah.
And I did feel sorry for some of the booths, although you could tell for some of the booths where they had like just one guy working. At that point, it was just like, yeah, the rest of the staff go home. Let's leave one guy here. I noticed that on several booths, just one guy answering questions. Like, yeah, there should be 2 or 3 people. No, it's just one dude. Or the saddest one I think I saw was the Top Cow booth, where it was just one dude. Kind of in one Top Cow was like way far in the back. And I was like, oh, it's odd. They're usually up front. And it was just one guy who I didn't recognize. And I've seen the staff at that booth a lot of times. So it's probably an intern. Just sitting like on a chair, like leaning against the wall, just kind of like clearly looking bored out of his mind. And I'm like,
Alright, that's it. That's a con right there, you know?
this hurts. And I don't want to like just sit here and buy something out of pity because I'm not that guy who does that. And like, I feel like I should just interact with you. But dude, I feel you, bro. I feel that like the nothingness.
I think that's a con review right there. Top Cow staff.
Yeah. It's just strange seeing their booth all the way far in the back and then seeing Alterna Comics all the way in the front. And nothing against Alterna Comics or you know, and nothing, you know, Top Cow's produced a lot of really, really great and popular series like Witchblade, The Darkness, others. Wanted, I think they published Wanted, which I loved. I think Stan, you liked that one too. And Alterna Comics has some new good stuff. It just seems odd to me that you wouldn't just put all the comics companies' booths like right next to each other, which is how they used to be. But like Alterna Comics was there, and then not too far from there would be Aspen, and I'm like, okay, this seems normal to me. And then Top Cow's just like, boop, way in the back, and I'm like, why is Top Cow way in the back? Why are they not right next to Aspen and Alterna Comics like they usually are? What is with the organization this year? It was one of those things that bothered me when I was there. I was like, oh, I'll just make note of that. And then like as you know, it's been a few days since the convention, and my brain goes, the dealer hall was really disorganized, and it really kind of bothers me.
It's like they just rolled the dice, like, you know, hey! Alright, 8. So that means Top Cow goes way back there. And
like they're right near some indie people who are just like dude selling his own comics or lady selling her own comics. And I'm like, they should not be squared with these people. Like, they've been a company since the 90s.
It's so weird, but yeah, it's just been so god freaking weird.
And the Space Expo was also in the back, which usually is. So that's not a huge, like, oh my gosh, what's it doing back here? They had a spacesuit you could do photos with, which was nice. A few different little things for the kids to play around with, which is kind of usually what that is. It's usually the kids' zone. It was also right next to a little, I guess, laser tag area, it looked like. Wasn't quite sure if it was laser tag or what it was supposed to be. That little crawl, well, I guess probably not a crawl thing if you're a kid, but for like me, I'd have to get on my hands and knees to get through some of the little tunnels. The little tunnel fort thing. From my perspective, is like I said, from kids, probably a little different. I'm glad that the kids stuff. There were a lot of kids. That's the one thing I did notice.
Yeah, a lot of families,
a lot of kids.
There are a lot of kids in cosplay?
I saw some,
Not as
but
many.
not as many as like I would say in previous years.
Did any of them make you go, aw?
No, it was mostly me trying to dive out of the way as someone was trying to use their stroller as a battering ram. Yeah. I was like, okay, I get it. Shouldn't you be at Disneyland right now? But, you know, saw like the dads of the couple of kids looking at, you know, floppies and stuff like that. I was like, oh, it's nice just seeing families together doing nerd stuff. I do appreciate that. A lot of kids at like the various toy booths and stuff like that. I did notice that, which, I mean, yeah. The variety of booths was pretty decent, as I recall. It's a lot of floppy booths, a couple different toy booths, a couple different shirt booths, a couple of the actual comic companies, as I mentioned earlier. Not a bad lineup of merch. Nothing that really appealed to me, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for, anyways. But I mean, not bad for a small con, I guess. The Artist Alley, I do feel sorry for the artists, like you said, Stan. I just looked at that and was like, oh god. there was a video posted by Brad Jones. This was years ago. I don't remember what con he was at, but the video is just entitled "Sad," and it's just it's just him at his booth and like no line, and there's like the stuff scattered out, and he's just sitting there, and I think it's like time lapse. It's him like, and then this looks, and then eventually his like head's just down.
Oh, that's sad.
And I don't know what con he was at. I don't think he put what the name of the con it was, but I just remember that video, and it's called "Sad" or something like that.
Oh man.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't like seeing that at cons. It kind of hurts me a little bit, and it's one of the reasons why I'm always afraid of tabling, because I'm like, I don't want that. I don't need the video of just depressed Jared at the booth.
What if it gets views?
Okay, well, hopefully those views can turn into like sales at some point.
And people will ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, we can print out the just T-shirt that says "sad" with your face on it.
Just move my head down.
and like a Kendrick Lamar like cover album cover style, it just says "sad." It's just- yeah.
Brad's like, oh man, you stole my idea.
No, we didn't, because we just invented it. You never did anything to it
Yeah,
within hours, bitch.
Yeah, you just made one video years ago. We actually monetized it. Guests did have some lines. Some of the guests had lines, I should say, and some of the guests were just also in that kind of sad kind of state. Although most of the times they actually look more annoyed or angry, and I'm like, yeah, I could get that. The low numbers really didn't help any booth. No booths gained out of Sunday for sure.
No. Sad.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to move on to the panel then?
Yeah.
At this point, you might as well.
You may as well at this point.
Might as well.
Do you want me to go into the film festival, or do you want to talk about the regular panels?
Film festival.
Okay, so film festival is one of the things that I was looking forward to. I actually really do like the Geek Fest film festival. I've been going, at least every time they do an event, I try to hit it. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's comedy and then some interview panels. Nah, pass. But if I can, this year I was able to hit horror and I hit fan film. And between the two was superhero, which makes no sense to me because most of fan film was superhero. So I don't know how superhero works. I don't know if you have to make your own original superhero, if it has to be like a superhero that doesn't have a movie franchise or something right now. I mean, like, if I did a Question movie, is that a fan film or is that a superhero movie? Question's technically a superhero. I have the powers of being weird. Okay, cool. Nothing against... We love you, Mr. Sage. But horror was 4 movies and kind of a mixed bag. The first one was this. It kind of begins as like it seems like it's going to be a parody, and technically it was. It just wasn't a well done one. Where it's this couple, they're in the car, they're on the thing, like, oh, but what about the killer man? Oh, don't worry, we have plans. This will be so good when we do this, blah blah blah. And then they scratching on the side of the car, and like, I'll go see what it is. And you're like, okay, so this is going to go into some sort of weird comedy bit here. And the killer's about to kill the guy, the girl knocks him out, and then they take the guy and they start like threatening to torture him inside a school. And it takes off his mask and just some nerd guy going like, I just wanted to get revenge on the people who bullied me in high school. And plot of a handful of different high school slashers that have that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, we need to torture him and like cut off all his fingers and stuff. And like, it's like, oh, they're really the psychos. We're doing this trope. And then they like kind of let him go. And then they start chasing him with weapons and it goes to credits. And I'm like, I've seen this before. I've seen this done better. And I don't even like it when it was done better. Like, I hate aren't we going to subvert all these things? Like, I'd rather just be a complete wacky comedy where, like, the guy was getting killed to death with, like, a little rubber squeak mallet. It's like, ah! And then it hits him with a squeak mallet, makes a squeak noise, and you see, like, a big, like, just, like, Tarantino-level blood spray, like, when he hits the guy in the head with the hammer. Like, I would have preferred that kind of parody. That, to me, would actually been funny. Because it's just so absurdist. How would that ever work? The second one was interesting in concept, but also not that great. It was basically just Hell meets Office Space, which I feel Office Space is already showing you what Hell essentially is. But it's that they're demons, they're in the office, and then a couple Dilbert-style jokes, followed by Guy gets called up to the boss's office, finds out the boss is on vacation, and he's in charge. Credits. And I'm like, okay. He was all afraid that the boss was going to murder him or torture him because, they're demons, and that at least would have been some blood and violence and something exciting. And it was like, just kind of, it wasn't one of those lines. It didn't end, it just stopped. Like, there's a second half to this somewhere, and they didn't want to show it to us. The third movie was Prison Escape from, it looked to be a German prison during World War II. And they send these weird zombie-ish guys after them. Like, I'd call them zombies, but they're like kind of running on all fours like dogs. They're weird animalistic zombie things, and kind of a cool concept. I actually really liked it. You get some of the action of shooting the different things, running. There's a tank. Yeah, tank shows up. Tank versus zombies. And this time, unlike the Walking Dead, it works. So there was that, and I did appreciate that. And that would have been the best, except for the last one was called Chromophobia. It's basically about an artist in a mental hospital, and it just is shot so well. Everything is super creepy, and everything just adds up to make this really creepy, disturbing atmosphere. The therapist is starting to get creeped out and starting to freak out, and yeah, it was really, really well done. It is hard for me to explain because it doesn't seem that exciting. You're like, oh, okay. But it really worked together with how it was shot and how it was handled, and I really did like that one. That was the one I voted for the top. For fan film, most of these, thankfully, I don't have to get too detailed on because a lot of them can be explained in a sentence. First one they showed was a Captain America fan film where Cap enters a room, fights bad guys, and then takes on their boss guy who has these like electro gauntlets. I'm not sure if he was supposed to be a specific character from the comics or not. I don't know that many characters who have electro gauntlets that don't shoot like lightning beams out of their hands or something like that. Yeah, I know. Yes, he wasn't Shocker and he wasn't Electro. He was just some dude with like gauntlets that could like charge a little electrical energies.
Electrocutioner from Batman?
But it's a Captain America fan film. Either way, the martial arts was actually pretty well done. The shooting of the action was great. The usage of the shield was actually used properly where, if you're going to have Captain America, you need to chuck the shield and knock a dude out. And even have like the big bad like be able to deflect it and then catch it still. And they did a good job with that. Second one. Okay, now I need to look.
I think it was you mentioned something about Lois Lane or something.
That's the last one, and that was one of my favorites because that one required no action. It was just really good storytelling and kind of a cute little thing. But I actually have my information on my phone.
Okay, all right, take it.
Oh, right. The second one was a Star Wars fan film called Hood, and it was basically like done in kind of that weird stop motion Robot Chicken style. And if this was if someone told me this was a Robot Chicken sketch, I would have believed it. Just a very long one with a plot. And it's about this guy, and he's like looks all bummed out, and he's sad, and you have this flashback to him and his wife, and his ice cream machine. And for those who know the ice cream machine memes from Star Wars, it's kind of what this is making a parody of. A monster attacks. And at first I thought it was the guy's like pet cat. I thought they were going to do like that kind of a thing. But then it was just this weird, large, claw, fuzzy monster thing. Really good. I really do recommend going out and finding that one. It is very funny. The third one was Friday Night in Gotham, which was a Batgirl versus thugs and/or criminals. And it was decently well written. It had one of my favorite one-liners of the entire thing. She's beating up these drug dealer guys, and it stops, and it goes to like her inner monologue. She's like, "Ooh, I gotta do something cool now. What would Bruce say?" And it just cuts to her, and she's like, "Say no to drugs." And it cuts back to her mind. Nailed it. And I was like, okay, you got me there, movie. That was actually really funny. Batgirl's trying so hard to do the action one-liner. The best you could come up with is say no to drugs. The problem I had with this one, because it was very well written, the costume was well done, the lighting and all that great. The action was shot in that ADD, modern day, I need a cut every 10th of a second action, and I hate that. I hate it so much, and especially when, not too long before that, I was watching a really well-cut and well-shot action. It's clearly people who know martial arts. A sequence, and then I go to like we're gonna just change the angle every 10th of a second and give Jared a headache. Yeah, not as cool with that. So that one, unfortunately, as much as I liked it. Oh God, are we lost?
No, we are not lost.
Okay.
It's just doing its thing. See, we're still online.
Okay.
Keep going.
Growing Shadows. Growing Shadows was an interesting one. It was Poison Ivy at Arkham Asylum, and Bruce Wayne is talking to her, and she knows that Bruce is Batman, which I'm like, okay, I'll roll with this. And he's trying to get information out of her, like someone's killing using your methodology. Who is this person? And the whole thing is kind of shown from Ivy's perspective. So when Bruce is done talking with her, he just leaves. And it just cuts to the next day. And this woman, who unfortunately has like a Brooklyn-style accent, so I thought it was supposed to be Harley Quinn, is like, "You're getting moved, darling," and takes her to this other, jail cell where it's like, yeah, the Bruce Wayne wing or whatever has just been opened, and you got a special room there. You must have done something really nice to him at some point. And it's just this very beautiful room with like a whole bunch of like ivy growing on the walls and what have you. And it was a nice little payoff there. Interesting kind of doing that. I found it I liked how it was shot, but it was just kind of like lackluster comparative to the other things. Scoundrels was my least favorite. It was essentially Star Wars people go into bar, Star Wars people fight. And the thing is, you could have done something really cool, because initially it's them gambling and like talking. It's a bunch of like thugs, Star Wars thugs, gambling, talking trash on each other. And I'm like, I am down with this. If this is just going to be these guys just playing Sabak or something and talking trash and making references to heists in the past, and it's going to be them just drinking and gambling, I'm down. But as soon as like the bounty hunter shows up, it just turns into generic laser gun fight in the bar, and I'm like, I don't know who any of these criminals are. I was kind of getting to know them, and then this guy just comes in and guns them down, and I'm like, okay, you go for you, bounty hunter. You sure shot those people. Yay. It's my least favorite type of Star Wars fan film. Everyone wants to do a bar fight in the cantina, and that's fine, but do it right. Do it where you actually care about who's in that cantina and why they're fighting, not just, we're criminals, I am bounty hunter, zap, zap, zap. I am the winner. Yeah, I don't particularly like that. The last one, I believe, is my one I voted for top. Oh, no, it wasn't. My top actually went to Hood. So my second favorite, and last one of this one, is called Laundry Day, and it was Lois Lane and Clark Kent at a laundromat, apparently before Clark has joined the Daily Planet, because they don't know each other. But in the process, Lois Lane pretends that she's psychic, and freaks Clark out, and she goes like, yeah, I had my friend Jimmy Olsen just like read the information on your license, or give me information after I saw your license. But it was really cute, them just kind of flirting around and being awkward. They're both like watching like some bad soap opera while waiting for their laundry to be done. And at the end, the TV changes, and it's like, oh no, the monsters from the 6th dimension have invaded Metropolis, and they're destroying downtown. If only someone could save us. And Lois Lane's like, I gotta cover this. Come on, newbie. It's gonna be your first day at the planet tomorrow. Don't you want to come in for a big story? He's like, no, you're the famous reporter. You go do it. I'll catch up with you. And it just shows him looking at his like machine. He's like, come on, finish. And you see him do like the super eyes, and you just see his outfit. The Superman suit is just in there, getting washed. And he's just waiting for a Superman suit to be done in the wash.
The one time he's not faster than the speeding bullet.
Because he has to wait for the machine to drive.
I know, right?
And I was like, this is so good. It was like the chemistry between Clark and Lois was very well done. They looked like the characters. I didn't have to know their names. I'm like, oh, that's Lois Lane. Oh, that's Clark Kent. Like, it was instantaneous. Initially, you don't know because it's just called Laundry Day. And you're like, okay. And you see this guy with glasses and, the hair. And I'm like, that's Clark Kent. And then another gal, black. And I'm like, that's Lois Lane. And they didn't even have to talk. I already knew who they were because the casting and the way they dressed them, the way they carried themselves was just freaking spot on, and I loved that. And if it wasn't for the awesomeness of like a kind of an animation type thing, it would have been my number one without needing to throw a single punch.
Wasn't there a Tom Jane fan movie called Laundry Day as well?
I think so.
Yeah, with Punisher. They don't even mention he's like Frank Castle. They just like show him and then just whack these bad guys. Like, oh damn.
No, of course, I love the Deadpool short with Deadpool needing to change his costume to save the guy. What's a phone booth doing in modern society? So I found that it was funny, it was well done, and I really do appreciate that. It made me curious what the superhero stuff was, because I'm like, well, that is superhero stuff, so I don't know. Mm-hmm. Those were the ones they were doing on that day. On Saturday, they had, I think, their sci-fi, comedy, and probably a few others. Their horror is usually pretty strong. This year, I didn't think horror was that great. As much as I liked the last two, Stalag 3 and Chromophobia were pretty good. But there's some other ones that were just freaking great. Invasion of the Wasp Men was a parody done in like those 1950s, like, oh no, Wasp Men are coming from Mars! Run for your lives! And it was just parodied so well, and it was really funny. And they've done some really creepy ones too. I can't remember anyone off the top of my head. But the horror is always like a tough one on them. It's either going to be really, really good or like, ugh. But man, the fan film, I've seen those before, and usually it's pretty strong. It is actually amazing that there's people who took the time to do that kind of fight choreography, that, you know, some shoot the fights better than others. I have seen another Batgirl one that actually shot the fights really well, and it looked really cool. And she was doing like, I want to say the animated series style, like the yellow inner cape and like the purple. Most do like the more modern comic styling of like more of the gray and the dark blues, but I don't remember what that one was called either, but that one was actually a pretty good one from years ago. Overall, I really do recommend the film festival, especially if you're looking at the list of panels. You're like, then this is a great way to kill an hour. You get to watch some cool stuff, and they even had the last panel they did of the day. I did not attend this, but it has some of the various creators, and they get their awards for those who were the top tier people, and you can ask them questions or network or whatever. So overall, I really do like it, and it is something I'm glad is here. I kind of wish GeekFest showed up at more cons, even if it was just going to be like the same movie list where I'd walk in and be like, oh, you're just doing the same ones from Coolsies. But if it did, then at least I could show people, go like, oh, it's the same lineup. I need to show you guys that Captain America one, then you can leave. The other ones are good, but you need that Captain America one because the fight was just so damn good. And it'd be cool to share it with more people. I don't know if they post all the videos online or how they do it. I know certain companies don't like fan films existing, so that's got to make things complicated, but there probably is a way. They have their website and stuff for GeekFest where I'm sure there's links to stuff. But do recommend that. The panel lineup, on the other hand, was mixed. Can we call it mixed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely mixed.
It's definitely.
Two of those, cosplayer ego trip panels.
Ooh.
Not fond of those. We need to stop those people. Cosplaying panels should only be how-to panels, and not a worship this person panels. I think we're all kind of agreed on that one, right?
Yeah. What's the old thing was, hey, can I cosplay this? Yes.
Yeah.
End of panel.
End of panel.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that's a panel right there. Okay. Can I cosplay a laptop? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, there's that classic picture of the person dressed up as Awesome-O from South Park. It requires cardboard box and writing awesome-o on the cardboard box, and now you are done. Your cosplay is completed.
Yeah, it's really not that hard, but other panels though,
Yeah, the one that really stood out to me that I really enjoyed, even though it got massively derailed, was the superheroes and killing panel.
Ah, yes.
That was great. It began with a discussion with, I think, one of the artists of Deadpool, one of the co-creators of The Punisher, and the guy who did the 1980s Shadow comics, which I didn't know existed, because at that time I wouldn't have known those exist. I'm not a huge Shadow fan to begin with, but it sounded like a cool run, though, because it was Shadow, had all his powers and whatever, but instead of being Pulp Hero from Pulp Era, he was moved into 1920s, or 1980s New York. And I'm like, I kind of want to read this, because that sounds like that's going to be dark and messed up. And the first 20 or so minutes of the panel is them talking about, their influences and, how they use violence in their stories and when to use it and consequences. And then it massively derails and it just becomes them riffing on each other and making random jokes and telling go-nowhere stories out of their lives. And I'm like, I should be upset that this panel just lost track of what it was supposed to be talking about. But just, you could clearly tell these guys have known each other for a long time and were just Just like, oh, we're supposed to be doing a panel. I totally forgot. And I was fine with that. Honestly, I kind of like panels like that. It was kind of like WonderCon last year when I went to the Rob Liefeld panel, and I mean, I guess you could call it a panel. It was him walking around talking about people's cosplays that he liked, mine included, and giving them comics because he's like, dude, I love your cosplay. It's so awesome. Here's a comic book. And I was like, thank you, Mr. Liefeld.
Yeah, don't tell anyone, but this comic is laced with LSD. You know, which I'm on. Yeah.
Whoa! So these little tiny Deadpool's like dancing. Because like with that panel, he'll start on a story and then he'll just get distracted by something because he's the master of ADD. But like I'm like, I kind of enjoyed this panel. I haven't laughed this hard at a panel in a while because he's just going and like. So then I was on set for Deadpool and oh man, I don't know how Stan Lee does all that stuff because man, doing one movie like took so much time out of my schedule. Like, what if I created like all these other characters and I had to? What if there was like 7 other movies of my characters being made and I just go and cameo in all of those?
I mean, look, when you put it that way, yeah, that panel of the superhero killing panel, like, you know, the deviation is kind of acceptable. You know?
Yeah, it was just them kind of flying into weird discussions about like, I think fishing and.
I think something about like, you know, I think one of the guys mentioned like, was it Scott Kobold? I think mentioned like, you know, 1,000 ways. One of the sections of 1,000 ways to die or something. Yeah, I'm just like.
And one of the guys wrote a book about like how him just dying in different ways.
It's just like okay, I know it's a superhero and killing, but you just straight up talking about killing now.
Yeah, now and you're promoting like one of your other like things that isn't. I mean, you don't have to promote the comic you're there to talk about, but I go on the point of like, can we stick with, you know, your experiences working on these various things? I mean, Punisher going from a Spider-Man villain to becoming his own anti-hero is a very interesting story, and it's got abridged massively because they wanted to talk about other random stuff. Like at least the Deadpool guy I know wasn't part of the original team because that was Rob Liefeld, and then eventually Rob Liefeld and
Rob Liefeld.
No,
I know. I'm just
Pertesio, maybe,
yeah, but
I can't remember who was taking over the writing duties in that time period because I know he was more or less a minor character who showed up like as an occasional antagonist until they developed him more later in the 90s, early 2000s.
Right. So I remember I do remember the Punisher creators talking about like, you know, how the cops are using the symbol.
The iconography.
Yeah, I'm just like, this has been going on for a while,
A long time.
Yeah, and it's just like, I remember he voiced it on the internet too. You know, it's like, no, you're not supposed to use that. You know.
Yeah. He's the guy who does the crime solving wrong. You're not supposed to go around just murdering everyone who you disagree with.
Yeah, like he said, like, you know, if you use Punisher if you're a law enforcement officer and you use Punisher as an icon, that you're pretty much admitting that the law has failed. You have failed.
Yeah, you have failed as a police officer if we need to go to this extreme.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, I've never heard anyone who's been involved with Punisher ever talking about that, and they're absolutely right. Yeah. The whole point of the character was the police are super corrupt. It's, 1970s, 1980s New York. Crime is crazy. And it's to hell with it. I'm just going to go into the ghetto and just start shooting anyone I think is a criminal. It's kind of the same point that was supposed to be made by the novel version, not the movie version, of Death Wish. Where the whole point is, no, it's wrong to do this. Like, you're not supposed to go into the ghetto and just shoot people because you whether or not those are the people who wronged you, that's not what you're supposed to do. That's not how the law is supposed to work. And then the movies just glorified it as he's a hero for murdering all these people, and we're going to make sequels where he's a hero for murdering a lot of people. And the police are like, well, what you going to do? Like, F a gun. And it's like, you probably should arrest him. Or at least Rambo got arrested for fighting the cops and stuff like that. And, spoilers for First Blood. Rambo gets... First Blood doesn't end well, and in Rambo 2, he's in jail in the beginning. So just FYI for people who don't know that. Mm-hmm. For movies from before some of our listeners were born. And it's in that category of and again, also based on a book, where there's consequence for what the character does, and in the book, more reason, because he has the PTSD from the war. And kind of building on that whole point of, the broken, systems we have, and we should need to fix those, not hey, be Rambo in First Blood, be, I can't remember his character's
basically,
name. Don't be Death Wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Was the whole point of the novels for those ones, and then kind of the point that the guy was making, and it's just like, yeah. Again, I wanted more talk like that and less like, so then I was working on a comic book where I just kill myself on every page in weird ways. Okay, that's cool, but that's not, this was about the morality, and like, is it, how do you face that, and how do you make it heroic to murder people? And it's like, yeah. Or in the case of Deadpool, how do you make it a joke to run around murdering people all the time? Which Ryan Reynolds found a really good way of doing that. By making them all criminal types instead of just whoever pays Deadpool to kill people. They had set up in the movies a central form of morality for Wade, sort of. No, look, when he's that first mission he does in the first movie, he could have just gunned down the boyfriend or whatever, and he just threatens him and just lets him run off, and like, whatever, teenagers, who cares, keep your money, this was stupid. And comes back to the bar. And then, the guys he was going after in part 1 were clearly criminals doing experiments on people, and then part 2, things get a bit more complicated, but, eventually the fight at the orphanage is these people were doing horrible things to those children, so they were still bad guys. They were able to bend things like that, where it's not just, hey, Deadpool, kill this politician. Why? Sack of money. All right, let's do it. It was like, they would put in something where it's like, oh, because he's really corrupt or something. And it's like, okay. But then to make it humorous, because Deadpool's making smart-ass quips and pointing out all the tropes of action movies and what have you. And same thing with the comics, which are always hit and miss for me. I've read some terrible Deadpool comics and some good Deadpool comics, and in general, he's a character I avoid just because I don't like the... Comedy is hard, and if you don't have a writer who really knows how to do the dark comedy well, it's just going to come off terrible. And I always find him better when he's in a team, where he's playing off of the more serious characters, especially Cable. That works out better for me, because when you have someone who has no sense of humor, and someone making fun of the situation because they know they're in a comic book and they know they can't die, also because they have a regeneration, that works good for a balancing of story and character and humor, which, isn't always guaranteed in the solo books. Speaking of people getting, distracted and going off on complete tangents.
Yeah, I know, right?
What other panels do you guys hit? 'Cause I know you guys hit some stuff that I didn't.
You want to go first, because our first panel was,
I mean, once I stepped in but when it slowly started,
which panel?
Which one?
You have to say the name.
It was it was another Geek Fest panel. It's about the woman in horror.
Oh, I went to the very end of that because it was right before the horror movie started.
Yeah.
So I could hear the little end where they're talking about the next thing they're going to be in, and I was like, this was probably an interesting panel, but I really needed to check out the dinner hall. So
this was a panel probably for you. It wasn't a panel probably for me. So yeah.
And a lot of the problems stem from, number one, they had a technical issue where
lots of technical issues.
Yeah, they couldn't run the trailer straight. They were trying to figure out how to play the trailers straight, and they couldn't figure it out until much later.
Which is why it was fine during the film festival, but would have sucked for you guys.
Yeah. Secondly, they also had a bit of a mic issue.
Yeah, there were some mic issues.
And the third of all,
they had that at the superhero and killing panel as well. Come to think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Third, and I think this is the most problematic part, is that there was just no synergy.
No, there was not.
Yeah, the moderator was pretty dry, cut and dry, and it's just between the panelists, there just really weren't much and I get it, they didn't work together, they never worked together
doing different movies or whatever.
They never worked together in their lifetime, so you can't really expect much synergy for that. But then the moderator kind of has to blend it together, which didn't do well. So
that's rough.
Yeah.
They meant well.
Yeah. I just left right after the QA, and I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, so then you probably left, and then I walked in as they were finishing up their... so the next movie I'm in is such and such. I'm like, all right, cool. I don't know who you are. Because I can't read your... because we had enough people there, and I just sat in the back. I was like, I'm just going to sit in the back. I'll move closer to the screen before the screening starts. And it was just like, if I knew who you were, I would make note of this. Going like, oh, I know you from such and such.
One of them was Dana DiLorenzo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things, actually. She's a character actress.
I think the others are movie filmmakers.
Yeah, basically they're
Yeah.
independent movie makers.
Yeah.
They're making like, low budget horror movies.
Yeah. Some are
Those are
actually
some of the best ones, though.
pretty impressive. So.
Like
Some
one
of those are
the
terrible.
movie they
Yeah.
were like just talking about is like just turning a military grade robot into an office work robot, and that turns horrendously wrong because of course it would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
of course
that
it
seemed like a
would.
bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd watch that. It could be a pretty good horror comedy, honestly. It'd be better than the one with the demons in the office. Weird demon Dilbert. It'd be better than that. So.
So that was a panel we went to.
Yeah.
And they
That was the first panel I went
yeah.
to. Yeah.
And the other one we went to was the behind the cover, which is
Under the Covers.
under the cover. Is it
Yeah.
under the cover?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Under the
Okay.
Covers.
It's the title.
Yeah. You want to talk about it?
I have notes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yay.
But yeah, I don't know the name of the host, but I know the two artists, Logan Lubera and Zuarzu.
She's a Singaporean.
Yeah, I saw her booth, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't recognize that name, but
Yeah,
there's people here
she's-
talking to her.
Well,
And her art looks really good.
She majored as a fine art artist, so yeah, both of them worked for like all different kinds of companies and stuff. So I know Logan worked for
Marvel.
Marvel, Hasbro, Blizzard.
Orzu.
Arzu, it was Valiant Comics.
Yeah, it was early Valiant. Like I want to say recent Valiant, kind of early recent Valiant.
And a bit of Marvel.
Yeah. One
bit.
of her cover actually got to the Marvel actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Nice.
unintentionally because it was a rejected piece by Valiant.
I think that happens more often than,
Yeah.
than people might think, though. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff where it's like, this was a rejected, but I just modified it
I-
a little bit, and
I
this
think
other company
she-
wants it.
Commented that it was supposed to be Black Widow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
and I could see the similarities. I was like, oh.
No, it was basically originally it was supposed to be for the one the Valiant, but because it looked like a Black Widow,
Yeah.
anyways, like showed to someone at the Marvel is like, hey, can we use this? Yeah, sure. Hey, talk about getting paid twice.
Yeah. Not sure if you get paid for the rejected stuff, but
I think it's conditional. I think whenever that
yeah,
happens.
I guess it would come down to whatever her contract is.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of cool to be able to do that, and yeah, you have
Mm-hmm.
a couple legit artists there drawing covers, talking about it.
Yeah, they were showing like lots of their cover examples. and
Like,
stuff.
go ahead. Yeah.
Logan actually pointed a lot of like tips and tricks, which is pretty cool.
Which I will ingrain in my life, like brain life forever.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And-
that's what you want out of these kind of panels, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want that professional talking about their experience and teaching you something useful.
So the basic concept goes like this. Okay, here's a paper, right? Okay. Now the first thing one of the things he talked about is he uses a lot of like set patterns. One of the patterns he uses is what's called Z pattern, which is starting from the top left corner, and then to the top right corner, and then down to the top, somewhere in the midpoint, somewhere mid left, and then all the way down to the bottom right corner. And this is how it works, because the top left to the top right, that's for the title, that's how you read the title. That's how the eye's gonna go. Eye's gonna read the title, and then it's gonna go down to the character design, of course, obviously, right? Okay, and then it's gonna go to the bottom right, which in turn compels the reader to turn the page.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, damn.
That's actually really good advice, because I've seen some covers. One of my most hated things on covers is where they decide to put the logo just in random places, where it's like, oh, it's a vertical on the left side of the book. And I'm like, why is it there? I can't tell what that cover title says. And I'm talking American comics, so we're not going to get into mangas or however they do their titles. That's just on American comics. I've seen that one. The weird one where it's at the very bottom, and the character's like standing on their own title thing. That's always weird to me. And I'm like, why are you standing on your own title? And so, yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at how to design stuff for an eye-catching sort of way.
But there's actually a way to do the bottom title well, you want to talk about Orza's work, because it kind of leads into that.
Orza? Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It was, I think one of those was Punk Mambo.
Punk Mamba? Okay,
yeah,
well,
Mambo.
that's one thing she worked on,
Yeah.
but keep going what she worked on,
Oh my gosh. Let's see. I think didn't she uses somehow with the logo with that character.
Okay. So I'm gonna just get straight to the
Yeah.
point. One of the things that she was working on is called Cover. It's kind of like it's for Brian Michael Bendis' newfound company. You know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Blender or whatever.
Blender. Yeah. And she did a cover for the no pun intended. You know, it's called the comic. Literally is called Cover. It's kind of like an espionage sort of deal, I guess. You know.
Okay.
So, basically, she used like two different silhouettes. Okay, split in the middle. Okay, and the title cover is on the bottom left corner.
Okay.
And it's like, so it's kind of supposed to create that kind of like a espionage movie feels to it, I guess. You know.
Oh, you're talking about that one.
That one, yeah. That's what I was leading into because that's the last thing she showed up. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess it would be how it would blend with everything else is kind of where it would go into. Like I said, my issue is when it looks like the character's standing on it or it's covering their feet or whatever. And I'm like, are you just bad at drawing feet? Is that why you put it down there? Do you have the aforementioned Rob Liefeld? And you're like, oh, feet are hard. Let's just put the title at the bottom. There we go.
Of course you would, or just cut out the feet altogether.
Or cut out the feet altogether. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stop at the ankles.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of cool because like that's the things that I like going to these cons for because it's a smaller amount of people. You're not only capable of learning here, but you're not being crowded in by 2,000 people in the room and having people ask stupid questions. I hope.
So what else you want to talk about? What else you want to talk about from the panel? Okay, so other than that, let's see. Logan was So Logan.
I think he did make his first comic on Dark Horse.
Oh yeah, Outlaw 7. Right?
Outlaw 7. It was kind of hilarious because I know he's into video games, so his character was actually inspired by Zack from Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, well, the hair wise. So I was like, oh, that's actually pretty hilarious. So I think he learned a lot of that because that was like his first time doing a cover with the huge company. So
one of the things that he mentioned is like he used the blur effect for the background, and it's like I'm just like, oh come on, that's like an elementary school mistake, you know? Like that's like not gonna lie, that's like what's it called, I want to say early 2000s webcomic mistake, I like to call it, you know?
Yeah, I see where you're coming with that one, yeah.
Yeah, because I've committed a few of them myself.
yeah,
I'm sure all artists do.
I did Blur too, so
Yeah, we all did that.
we all did that. Oh, gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Let's not talk about
I know.
those.
Well, we have to, if it, you know,
Yeah.
somehow, you know.
Yeah.
We just gotta admit, yeah, we made a mistake,
Oh,
okay?
man.
Yeah.
But that shows that you've grown as artists. If you can look back and you're like, well, God, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
And then you have your better stuff.
So yeah, that was interesting. Like Logan just picking apart, I guess, his own work. You know, that's so good. You know, it's a good pointer. It's a really good pointer. And turns out, like on the origin side, okay. Here's the difference between Marvel and Valiant. And good God, it's like wow. Marvel has like you can imagine Marvel has like their set rules. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Valiant a little less. They're a little more lenient.
It makes sense because the guys in charge of it aren't the original Valiant people from whatever it was, 70s, 80s, 90s. They are instead two fans who bought the rights to the company after the company went under. So you have a very different perspective there than for the most part, most of the people in charge of Marvel are people who have worked in the comic industry. There's probably some exceptions, and I'm sure someone's going to like, actually. But for the most part, most of those people have been editors, or they've been writers, or they've been artists, or whatever. Most. And with Valiant, as far as I know, their leadership is like former lawyers or something.
Yeah, something like that.
So I could see them viewing how to do things a little bit different.
So one of the things that she showed is Exo Man of War, her first one, and they literally allowed like Exo's head covering part of the title, like just kind of like like bottom center, and it's just like okay, like if you're an Exo Man of War fan, yeah, you could tell like okay, that's Exo, like, but literally it just covers a Man of War. You just like Man and R at the end. You know?
I'm not. Again, that's something I'm not fond of, and maybe it's just from the way like I said, it's one of my pet peeves. Where if I was an editor, I go, no, can we just we do something, please? But like I said, it's that whole difference between the companies. It's kind of interesting hearing the differences.
Mm-hmm. So that was an absolutely enlightening panel.
And we got free prints.
Yeah, Orzu was actually handing out prints.
Orson was super nice, so she was handing out free prints of her artwork. So
It's always a nice little bonus for going to the panel too.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go down and get her to sign it, or?
yeah, she just signed it.
Oh,
so,
she's right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right there,
Right
on
there.
the spot.
That's easier than the whole and then follow me to my booth where I can sign it, even though I have a pen in my hand right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Because like I said, I saw her at her booth. This had been before that panel, and because it was I hit the dealer hall first, and I was like, oh, she seems to be popular, and I'm looking at the art, I'm like, art's pretty good. Never heard of her before, and it was so cool that when you said that, I was like, oh, good, I just saw her booth. She had some people there. So that's always a nice bonus to know that our artists are being recognized by the fans at the convention, even when we have a smaller attendance.
We want to talk about the last panel because I really don't want.
I don't
We
want
can pass.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Okay,
good.
because
You know what I wrote?
what?
Nope, I stepped out.
Hey, there you
I'm
go.
curious to know what panel this was. Just say the title, say no more.
This
Nah.
was how to master social media or something
Something like that.
Something like that. Let's
and
not
that
talk
was
about it.
that was an interesting panel. Let's just leave it at that. It was interesting.
I'll just say this, okay? It should have been called the shoddy theory of social media, okay? That's all I can say. God,
Let's
what a
move
waste.
on,
What a
please.
waste. What a freaking waste.
Let's move on. Oh.
So yeah, it didn't end the con on a super high note, but there was some highlights for both of us, which is not, or all three of us rather, just three of us here, which is nice and not what we expected. I think when we were going in this and we saw there was no line at the security and there was no line for getting badges or anything like that, and we were like, oh god, it's gonna be just us wandering the dealer hall alone.
Did the cars come back?
They were there.
Not as much.
Not as many of them,
Oh,
but
yikes.
Kit was there and
Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park, I think, was there.
Yeah.
I didn't see that many of them, and I didn't go and explore it because, just wanted to get in and get my badge, what have you. And it's sad because it seems like each event just shrinks down the amount of cars that show up, and I think it's the people just not wanting to bring their cars over. It'd also be nice to see a variety of some newer cars. It always seems to be the same ones, which is cool if it's your first time going to the con, and if it's your 10th plus time, however many times we've gone, especially if you count Comic-Con and Comic Expo together. We've hit quite a few of them over the years, and get a little tired of seeing the same stuff. I'd like to see something new.
Nice for next year. It's gonna be like a DeLorean RC car. That's the only feature. That's the only featured car right there.
It is. You joke, but
I know, right?
it's shrinking down each time, and I'm like, because at this point, I would settle for some of those stupid anime cars where they just put, "Hey, here's your wife. We want a car," just because at least it would be something different. It would make no sense because it's I don't know who these anime waifus are, and I'm like, you do not. That's fine. Nor do I, except for that one. That's Saber. But it would be kind of odd for the comic book crowd. But I feel like there's other vehicles that could show up there that might get some interest, or ones that just haven't shown up in a while. I haven't seen the turtle van in a while. I miss the turtle van.
I like Turtle Van.
Oh boy, yeah. So it's just
But
keeps
yes,
shrinking.
Star Cars is shrinking. The dealer hall's a bit messed up. There was fun stuff to do, but I don't know. Maybe had we gone on Saturday, we'd have a different point of view. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah, Sunday's not really a good way to show whether the con is gonna be alive or dead. To be honest, but it's tough. It's really tough. As long as we had decent time, I think we'd be all right. But yeah, even by that standard,
It's getting really sad.
yeah.
Yeah, even parking was actually really easy for us, which, not that parking in Long Beach is tough, except for that one year where 6 events were happening at the same time. But other than that, parking has never been that big of a deal. But we parked and didn't even have to take stairs or elevator or anything. We just walked right out of the parking structure, right onto the grounds of the convention center, not even a thing. And that's one of the reasons why we were just kind of worried. They did have some food trucks. I know you guys went and got fries.
Yeah, I got fries.
Yeah, so I didn't
3
check.
trucks, 3.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right, 3 trucks.
Yeah, I was about to
Trucks.
ask. I'm like, I didn't go, but what did they? What 3 did they have, if you remember?
One of them was a barbecue.
Yeah.
The
It
other
smelled pretty good.
Yeah, that one
Yeah.
smelled good. I remember
The
smelling that on
other
the way
the other
in.
one I think was Mexican sort of deal.
Yeah.
And the other one was kind of like like quote unquote American, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a friend of mine used to call generic American food.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad. I would expect more. Which I think is kind of, I think if we wanted to find a specific way of stating our feelings, it would be, I expected more. I think are we all agreement on that one?
I agree.
For me, it was like a slightly less than expectation. You know, I kind of expected like a small crowd, okay, so, especially Sunday and what have you, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But man, was it low, you know.
Yeah. So I think before we wrap up, we'll give our general final thoughts. Stan, you can go first.
They need to do something about this event. Like, I feel like being overlapped with Anime LA and a couple other events, like it really exposed them. Like, it exposed them really hard. And if I was the organizers, like at this point, like they're gonna have to consolidate. You know, like one of these, like Expo or Con, one of them's gotta go. One of them definitely gotta go. Like, I didn't have bad experience, but the way I see things, like right there, it's not looking well. And yeah, consolidation would probably be the first thing to consider.
All right, Deb.
Yeah, despite that there's a lot of like good positive moments, but I can't help but to be worried about this con. And it's I know we can't like judge with one day, but I'm still pretty concerned nonetheless.
I tend to agree with the two of you. It's one of those ones where last year made me worried. Both Expo and Con last year were kind of felt less than what I was used to seeing this event being. And then this year, I think the timing was really bad, and I think that hurt them a lot. But it was also the point that, you know, they could try to fight that by having something a little extra, and they didn't really feel like they had that little extra this time around. Their guest list lineup was fine. There was plenty of people from TV and movies and stuff that, you know, will draw people in. But there's previous years where they would have, you know, and you know, he's passed now, but they had Stan Lee. They've had, I think, members of the 60s Batman cast. They've had Bruce Boxleitner showed up one year from Tron. I think it was the same year that Tron Legacy came out. And they've had names that would be like, oh, that'd be so cool to meet. Or I can't wait for a panel. The Nightmare on Elm Street 3 reunion they did one year, that was freaking awesome. They had the Devil's Rejects one year, I believe. They had, which not as awesome. I think they also had some G.I. Joe voice actors one time too. Which,
what's the likelihood that they didn't spend any money on this con, you know, to save it for the next one?
it is possible. I think at this stage, probably because of last year, they might be hurting financially. This year's date was a really bad date choice. And I like this event. I do like it a lot. I like the convention center. I generally like the staff. The press staff has been very, very friendly to us. Security is usually pretty chill. And it's just, I can see the cracks in the foundation, and it really bothers me. And either they need to consolidate into one event, or they need to do something to kind of right the ship, because it really feels like another couple events like this and it's just going to disappear. And that's sad, because I don't want it to disappear. I like this con. And I'd had some moments of enjoyment, mostly due to the film festival, but you know, that only means so much in the grand scheme of things. And that's kind of sad, especially knowing that, you know, we have a WonderCon coming up, and even at the end of the year we have LA Comic-Con. So it's at that point where they really need to stand out. One of the things I liked last year is they did bring back the wrestling, which was fun. And something like that could put, plus, I mean, say, amp up their wrestling guests. You might be able to do something a little extra there. But right now...
They actually did have a wrestling guest, you know, this year.
Yeah, they did. Mm-hmm. They usually have at least one, but it's just, they need to find that niche that really sets them apart. And I feel like they're not doing that, and I feel that's going to be hurting them long run, and that's kind of sad. And I don't want to end this on a downer note, but it's kind of...
it is what it is.
It is what it is, exactly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this has been another edition of Zero Hour, the Conventions podcast. Up next this weekend, we have Anime Impulse, followed by WonderCon, and followed by whatever we feel like going to at this point.
Well, hopefully Strategicon. Yay, board games.
Sad.